Here at the Giver Marketing Network, we don't leave you drifting out in space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies strengthening your business while offering your talents to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another Giver Marketing broadcast. I'm excited today. We have Rob Birch in the house. Woot, woot. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Christine. Thanks for having me and looking forward to chatting with you about.
I'm excited. We're going to have some fun. When Rob first talked to me and we were talking about kind of what he's been working with, he's got that background in kind of operations, sales, and that kind of stuff. And we were talking about the changes he's seeing. You know, a lot of us have a side hustle, something else that we do, right? Just because that's the spirit nowadays, right? Most people have, I think, some kind of side hustle. So he got involved in land development. And as we were talking, I was like, oh my goodness, I hadn't much thought about it, but you're spot on. As the community changes, right, with small town versus national marketing, there's a whole different way that you look at things. And I just think that's going to be a fun topic, Rob. So thank you so much for just coming on the show and talking to us about that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Christine. And, it's kind of interesting seeing how towns transition with their marketing messages going from like 1,500 people to like 15 million.
Right. What a difference. And, I actually from a small town in California myself. It's up in the mountains. It's a town of like 2,000 people. We had one stoplight. Literally, everything was stop signs, but we had one stoplight in town. So small town, I get it. I get the vibe. I understand it. So this is really a topic that's special to my heart. So I'm excited about this. Now, Rob, your background, I know you had mentioned about doing stuff in land development. And it's funny, that word keeps popping up. I've got some clients that are in land development. Another friend mentioned they were doing it. And I'm like, I'm going to have to learn more about this. Right. So that's kind of where you came from and what this really spurred, right? Talk to us about this project that you're working on.
Well, for me, my partner, Rick Gossett, and we acquired some land out in this town, Eddy, Texas, which is between Waco and Austin. And like tiny town, but there's a lot of development that's going on with single family homes, SpaceX, Amazon, Meta, building their data center there or near there. And it's going to change the dynamics of the small town from like one stop sign intersection to multiple stoplights, gas stations, and suddenly there's going to be a lot of growth coming from all these suburbs pulling into Eddy. So that got me kind of interested in the marketing side of things and like on the impact on small town going from small town to a national scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Like I said, with the small town that I was in, one stoplight town, right? I guess that's slightly larger than a one horse town, perhaps. But there's a difference, right, in the feel. And I know we focus so much on an international, and we talk about, our national and large campaigns and social media and things like that. And really, I know when I was living in a small town, social media was a so what, right? That wasn't your primary source. Now when small business owners think, oh, I need to get my message out, oh, I need to post on social media, and we make a big deal about it. And if it's a large company and you're trying to, or you're trying to have a large influence beyond your small domain area, right? If you're trying to get the message out, sure, social media is one of those ways, but there's different ways that you would use it locally, right?
Yeah. There's different ways. Like there's Craigslist, which is very localized to that area. Just you can post your deals on there if you want to. I mean, that's very old school, but recently there's Nextdoor, which you may have heard of, which you can advertise your deals, post what you need.
Right. So really you're talking about like a hyper-focused, location-based kinds of marketing solutions, right? Because those big ones going everywhere, right? Your coffee shop, if you've got a little tiny coffee shop in a little tiny town of 2,000 people, you're not really wanting people to come from New York into your little tiny mountain town in California. I mean, it'd be nice, but chances are it's the locals that are drinking your coffee, right? Different focus, big time.
Yeah. I mean, it's really important for brands to get their online on Google Yelp reviews, or at least restaurants to kind of get that SEO marketing so that people know that they're there. I mean, I don't like going to Starbucks generally or national chains. I like to see what the locals do. And, there's a restaurant chain in not a restaurant chain, a restaurant called Our Daily Bread, which is kind of like, oh, this is neat. Just tiny place, burgers, fries, drinks. And you're like, okay, this is nice. I mean, it's going to change after a while, but, they still have their Google reviews. People know they're the best place in town. And then there's another vineyard there in Eddy, Texas called Kissing Tree Vineyard, where there's a little bit of SEO stuff going on where people go there, and making the national news is kind of good. But, it's the word of mouth that drives a lot of traffic toward.
Absolutely. And that's a small town thing specifically, but a lot of these techniques that we use in small towns can still be applied to larger brands, right? In larger markets. It's almost like you want the best of both worlds, right? I mean, if you have something, for example, we mentioned like a small coffee shop. So if you had your own coffee grounds, or your own that you wanted to be able to ship, right? So sometimes you can do a blend of what's local and then having that larger audience. But I really think, like you said, it's about building those relationships and word of mouth, right? And that's true for all businesses. You really do want that, whether it's a small town or a large area, right?
Oh yeah, like it's kind of huge. It's interesting. Like I recently did the Austin 10K, and I heard about through a friend, completely word of mouth. It's not social media. And a lot of people would sign up for these events just word of mouth. And that's kind of like saying that in a small town, is just people hear about it through their friend and they're like, oh, I'll do it. As opposed to like, I would say a national chain like Buc-ee's, where, they have billboards everywhere. Everybody knows it's 5 miles.
If you're in Texas, Buc-ee's. That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, they've got that larger appeal. They know also people come from out of state to come to a Buc-ee's. It's like a deal, right? When you come into Texas, oh, we can take you over to Buc-ee's. Now, if you're not familiar, Buc-ee's, you're like, why would you take me to a gas station? But if you're a local or you're in Texas, oh yeah, we're going to go to Buc-ee's, right? I mean, I laugh so hard because you go in and there's like Buc-ee's little swimsuits for the kids. I mean, it's like a thing. You guys if you're not from Texas, you don't understand. I was talking to one of my business partners for one of my businesses, and I was like, hey, Oz, how cool would it be to have Nemosa's art up in Buc-ee's? He's like, what is that? I'm like, gas station, right? He's like, no, why would we want our paintings up? And no, there's a whole spot when you walk into Buc-ee's. People may not realize this, but like the hallways leading to the bathrooms, the tiles and the walls and everything have art. I mean, that's a thing. I mean, how cool would it be? I would love to have as an artist have, displayed at Buc-ee's. That would be great, right? But only Texans truly understand that.
Yeah, and kind of driving those customers to Buc-ee's can be a bit expensive, but with all the billboards and stuff. But like I have out of towners that are excited about Buc-ee's because they're like, it's the biggest store ever. They get lost in it and they love it. And for me to see kind of like the growth in small towns in Texas, like it's going to be interesting to see like towns like Eddy, Texas, kind of grow with HEB or coming in and becoming more than like a one horse place or a one stoplight place. Like that's kind of the Texas Triangle aspect of like this I-35 corridor between and I forget the other highways. I feel bad here. I don't know if you can help me out.
Filling in all those numbers for all the different highways, but really the idea is, for example, Texas, they're still small town USA, right? Mm-hmm. And Texas isn't the only state that's still got small town USA, right? We tend to think of larger cities. We think of, from California to San Francisco, San Diego, right? New York. I mean, you've got all these big cities, and a lot of people reside in large cities, but there's still a lot of small towns. And so sometimes you see things on TV and you're like, that's not local, right? And but understanding the culture of where you're at, those small towns, there's a certain sense of charm. When I was back in California recently visiting family, I was up in the mountains again, not that far from where I'd been before. And, they've got these little main streets, right? So if you've ever been in a town where there's a little main street, that became one of my obsessions when I moved to Texas, was these little towns with these little like main squares, right? And so it's got like maybe a gazebo in the middle. Pilot Point up here has like a little veteran memorial area. I mean, you just never know what you're going to find, but you find these little stores on the square, right? And I've got a friend that does comedy. And so she's like drives traffic to this coffee shop or this little hole in the wall place, right? That by doing comedy shows there, right? So they have different kinds of challenges, right? Because they don't have necessarily a whole lot of people local. So trying to get people and draw people to your location, right? It's got its own special challenges with small towns.
Yeah, for sure. And like definitely making sure like the population growth is there. But that's kind of, a factor of businesses and, people deciding to live there. So having kind of like comedy shows or like meetup groups is helpful. I know like a lot of people on Giver Marketing, they work remotely and they just help out their local communities, which is great. And it's good to help out. So small town marketing has to get their game up a bit. I mean, there's a organization, a company here in Round Rock that I interacted with called Hot Dog Marketing, run by Jessica Scallon. I don't know if you know her, but
no, not yet.
Like she's a pretty fascinating person. She hosts these events here in Round Rock to kind of like get business owners to come and talk to her about their marketing problems, and that's helpful. Like everything's every event is somewhat of an incubator for as small medium businesses just getting things up and going. And I'm kind of curious what you do in Aubrey, Texas, Christine.
Right. Well, and like you said, really those incubators, the idea of small networking groups, right? If you're trying to focus locally, in-person networking is a great way to go. So you have a chance to kind of build those relationships. I know here in Auburn, we've got a small chamber of commerce, or Prosper, like all these little chambers of commerce all over the place. McKinney's a big chamber of commerce, right? Depending on the size of the town, sometimes that's a great place to go. It's a great place to, if you're new to the area, right, go meet people. If you're small business, you decided to, open a small business in a small area, right? Chamber of Commerce is always my first choice, just because there's a lot of options to get to know the locals that way. And you get a better feel for the culture, right? That networking opportunity to really get to know them and know what makes sense and what doesn't. You'll find that sometimes in the tourist towns, they are catering to the tourists more than the locals, right? When I was in that little town in the mountains, and it was adorable, and you're going to these little boutique shops, and you're like, that was $200 for a silk scarf. And you're looking around like, can people afford that here? When you start realizing, well, that wasn't intended for the locals, right? So there's a certain amount of know your audience. And if you are in an area that's more touristy, you have an opportunity to, maybe make those prices more tourist prices, right? As opposed to something that would probably be more reasonable. I mean, it's like, ouch, what? Yeah, that's really pretty, but but know your audience, right? They weren't selling that necessarily for the locals. So I really think there's some interesting opportunities for that in-person networking side of it. So with my business, The Networking Diva, right, it's all about building connections, and I focus a lot on relationship marketing. So I love being able to work with small businesses, whether they're in a small town or in a larger town, because it really is about building those relationships that you mentioned.
Yeah. It's important, like building relationships. Like word of mouth is very effective for like 5K, 10K races, and like you would say farmers markets is kind of interesting. Like and then you have Buc-ee's where it's a national chain. It's just a billboard. Everybody wants to go there. Everybody wants to see the beaver. It's like beaver. Like marketing is very fascinating, and like knowing your customer can help like figure out where you want to put your energy towards. Like I find it kind of fascinating. I have a friend of mine who he does truck driving, and I was kind of surprised to hear that he has a Starlink, like the internet satellite, and it's like I don't think Starlink had to advertise much to him to get him to sign up. It was just, this is something I need for my job to keep me entertained, to have kind of a community even remotely, and it makes sense for him. And like knowing your customer demographic is great. And I'm like, I don't know a lot about like Givers marketing. I'm kind of curious what our audience is like. What are their problems?
Right. Well, so we tend to work with brands that want to make a difference, right? So brands, I always call them my do-gooders. If you're on a mission to do good in the world, I always say, I want to meet you. Right. And so a lot of times we'll talk about a local focus building up around where you're located, in addition to something that's more of a national scale or international, depending on what your business is. But really with the local side of it, we talked about becoming a trusted community member, right? Being part of the local community is important. Even if you're a national brand, you'll find a lot of larger businesses that will settle into a small town area, trying to build that rapport with the community, right? Because this is where they're going to be hiring people a lot of times if they have anything that needs to be done in person. If it's a manufacturing place, if it's whatever it is, right? A lot of times they're trying to build that rapport with the community. Was it Gritter? I know is out towards, was it Richland Hills, I want to say. And it's a sporting goods location, and it's huge and massive, but they still try and keep that focus with the community locally, because, for example, they have a room that you can use free of charge for example, to host different community events. So they do things like that to kind of help build that rapport with the community. So even with larger businesses coming into a smaller community, they try and be part of the community. Right. And we see example getting involved, not just with the local events, or maybe it's the schools or the local nonprofits, local sports teams. If you've been into any of the small town restaurants, a lot of times it's not unusual to see, a whole sports team photo up on the wall, sponsor of blah, blah, Little League, and right. And that's really building those relationships in those small towns. And that's really going to be your key when working on small town marketing. But those kinds of things that we talk about are so important in small town, apply regardless, whether it's small town or whether it's a larger town you're from, right? There's so many different options. We've got somebody talking about Zipley here in Coos County is a great example. So we're getting some people's interest in this topic. They're feeling it. I can hear it.
Yeah, I have no idea where Coos County is, but I guess that out in Oregon, that's
because it's a small town, right? We're not familiar with them all. Exactly. But really building that rapport with the locals, whether you're sponsoring those local teams, maybe you're offering a scholarship, you're volunteering your time. Some organizations are really good about giving you an hour, paid hour every month to go volunteer in the community, right? So there's a lot of different ways to kind of get involved locally. And it's not just for the small businesses. This is stuff that's good for the larger businesses also to help build that rapport locally, wherever they're at.
No, oh yeah, hands down. And like one thing I got into like with marketing when I did my own startup back in the day was kind of an exciting one, doing like car crash analytics. Is you have to know your customer, like where they're coming from, especially people with car crashes. They're probably going to be people that had a car crash recently, or maybe attorneys. And you have to get those people, and you could, like, the going rate at the time was like $2,000 for a click on Google to say car accident attorney, and that would be paying $2,000 just for a click is a lot. And you don't really want that, but that was the norm. Having like word of mouth helps, and that takes a while to develop a reputation.
Absolutely. But you make up a great point, right? The idea of organic, right, versus paid. And so the more you can drive organic, right, is the less you have to pay on the paid side of it, right? So as you come in, you start, like you mentioned, the local SEO and letting those local know so you show up for searches nearby, right? The more you can do that organically, then the less you have to do on ad spend. So that's definitely a good strategy when you start thinking about long-term versus short time. If you're not doing anything that's building up your organic following, then you're just going to be paying out those ads over and over and over again with no end in sight, right?
Yeah. Well, what I'm kind of curious, like I see like these trends of like personal injury attorneys in big cities, other big cities, and sometimes small towns. Like, what other trends in marketing do you see from like the national to the small town? Like, do you see anything kind of jumping out at you? Or?
Well, when you think about national brand recognition, right, it's like everybody knows, right, because they've seen it on TV, they've seen something, and there's a certain amount of credibility that goes along with that. So that's where brand reputation is so important, right? Because if you've trashed your reputation, now everybody knows, but they're like, oh yeah, avoid that one, right? And even more so with small town, right? Because that word of mouth, right? We talk about bad Google reviews. Well, you take that and you want to do that in a small town, that gets really bad, because now who's going to be who's going to use your business, right? That's going to be really rough. So you got to be really careful with your reputation, whether you're a small town, big town business, whatever it is. That reputation is going to be, that's your gold.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting, like with Google reviews, if you have them for your website or your business, like people will look at that before they start talking to you generally. Like a lot of clients will do like deep research on that.
Mhm.
And for me, I try to look for like the negative reviews to kind of see if like what's the filter, because some businesses they're able to get a lot of positive reviews, and you want to be able to see how a business handles a negative stuff. I mean, most businesses like they want to succeed and they'll do well, but there's a little truth in the negative review, but not
Mhm.
much.
Well, and you make up a great point there, because when we think about if everything is 5-star, at some point you kind of look at it sideways and kind of suspicious, like nobody's perfect 100% of the time, right? And you start wondering about the validity of the other reviews. So even if you don't have, completely 5-star and everything's perfect, that's okay, because you look realistic. Right. And there's something to be said about that. It feels more authentic at some level. Right. So don't panic if you don't have completely 5 stars, but we want to keep them happy, right? Keep them good.
Yeah, I mean, 5-star helps. 4 stars, that's probably more realistic for most businesses. And it's really important for like businesses, at least in my experience, to get these Google review things up, because it's kind of replace Yelp to a large
Mhm.
degree. I mean, I like Yelp, but Google has kind of dominated that market, and you
It
know,
definitely has. Yeah. If you're a small business or a larger business, even usually if you're a larger business, somebody along the lines has told you to do a Google thing. But I still find small businesses that haven't set theirs up, and they're not always understanding the relevancy. And really, it's an opportunity for people to find you that don't know anything about you, right? Maybe they're searching in the area for something very specific and they have an opportunity to stumble across you, and you might create some new raving fans if they come by, right? So that Google review really is important for your business. So I'm just going to say, if you have not claimed it yet, go claim it. If you're not sure how to do that, reach out to one of us at Giver Marketing. We can give you some advice.
oh yeah. I mean, it makes sense for people to do it before it gets taken. Well, not likely, but just in that event.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of people that have not, they literally have reviews and they haven't claimed them. Like, are you the owner of this business? Claim this business. I'm like, how have you not claimed that?
do you have stories working with your customers of people
I've
not?
I've come across people that have not claimed their Google business. Google also has a knowledge profile. So if you're an author and you've put books out, you may not even realize that it's there. And you go search, you're like, oh, look, it's me, right? You might want to claim your knowledge panel so you can update that and keep it current. So there's some interesting spaces that you don't always think about. So you got to go in and search yourself on the internet and see what's on there, right? See what comes up, see who's you, and really the goal is for your business to show up, right, over and over. Everybody, it's you, right? That's the goal.
Yeah. I would. I agree with that. You just want to own the SEO, be on the top page. Like I have two URLs that I want to share. One is Fast Eddie 5K, which is pretty descriptive. It's like, hey, this is a 5K, Eddie, sign
Eddie,
up.
Texas.
Yeah, Eddie, Texas.
Okay.
And that's pretty straightforward, cut and dry. And then I have another one, stableirr.com, and having these word recognitions kind of simple is great, rather than something complex like another company in Abilene, Texas. It's like, I'm not going to do business with another company in Abilene, Texas. It's not really telling me anything. You want a short and sweet URL to kind of say your brand, kind of like Giver Marketing. It's very straightforward.
Yeah, straightforward URLs are nice. We were just talking about this yesterday about one of my clients. She's like, that word is really long. Let's get a shorter URL and we can use that for the email address, right? And that's not uncommon either. I know with Namosa, it was started out as No More Starving Artists. Well, how many times do you want to put, diva at, right? That's a really long email address. And so we end up shortening it to Namosa, right? So namosa.art. So the idea is to pick something that's relevant, makes sense, and isn't so long that people need, it's going to take me 10 minutes to type that out, right? Keep it easy and simple.
Well, yeah. Then this is something I want to ask you about. I'm kind of curious what you think about Stack Counter versus Google Analytics for keeping track of where people come to your website, because I like Stack Counter to a degree, but I also see the benefits of Google Analytics since it plugs in with all the SEO stuff. But
and so what happens, right, when you have the big players like Google, they've got their hands in everything, which means everything integrates with everything. They've done a really good job with that, with marketing. Sometimes you have those are the more the Microsoft school side, and then you've got the more the Google school. I tend to play on the Google side, I admit it. But you make a really good point about the idea of marketing and integrations, right? And when you choose something that's a larger organization or a larger marketing program, right, it's more likely to integrate with other things that you want. I always tell people start with your CRM. That's kind of the heart of your business, and then make sure everything else integrates with it as you bring things in. If you're not careful, though, you can Frankenstein it. And so this doesn't talk to that, which doesn't talk to that, and then you're having to use apps everywhere, right? So coming up with your what we would call a tech stack is a really important part. And Giver Marketing, we've got some marketers that are just fantastic in that space of helping you figure out your tech stack, right? What makes sense for your business? What do you need? Where are you going to invest your money? How do you want to organize things? And if you can get that backbone nice and strong, then everything else can kind of flow smoothly from there. When you don't, right, then it's like, oh man, trying to find everything and it's not all tied together. It really is a Frankenstein thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it can be a Frankenstein thing for sure. And, it's kind of a point to a degree is like, when you have a national brand or your local brand, you become a national brand the moment you're hooked up online, like it or not. I mean, early May, I was in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was watching Warren Buffett speak, and it's kind of shocked to think that here's this local event that he started with all these shareholders coming, and they're doing a 5K and they're going out to eat all because of this one man. And there's all this like media coverage, SEO stuff going on. And it's kind of shocking to me that this one guy kind of got Omaha to stand still for like 2 days. And you're like, what? I mean, that's kind of the power, I guess, of a local brand. And
talk about the center of influence, right? Your local center of influence. You have an opportunity, even within a small band, to bring your community together, build those relationships, form collaborations, right? Okay, I've got coffee, you've got the comedy, bring your comedy to my coffee shop, right? I mean, so there's a lot of opportunities for collaborations and true small or large companies, right? So I think sometimes the companies get large and we start losing that sense of relationships and authenticity. And some brands are really good at building that, and other ones probably still need some work on that. But when we look at small towns, you may grow, you may stay where you're at. You just don't know, right? But to be prepared, right? There's some foundations in your marketing that you're going to want to put in place. And that's a lot of what we talk about with Giver Marketing, with the marketing blueprint, right? Regardless of whether you're in a small town or a big town, you need to know what your brand is, right? You got to decide, what does that look like? Are you visible? Can people find you? And if it's local, right? What do you have the signage? I don't know if you've ever been to a small town, you're looking around like, I'm looking for this shop, but are there numbers on anything? Can I find it? Is there a name somewhere that I can find easily? I remember like, oh, we want to come back here. Well, what's the name of this place? I have no idea. I can't find it anywhere. Okay. I'm looking out front. There's nothing on the window. There's nothing hanging off the signs. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll just remember it's next to that place, I guess. Right. Right. So that whole, from the branding side to the visibility, let alone the promotion side, right? Are you taking advantage of the opportunities within the local? I was just talking to someone who works locally, a chiropractor. And so he was talking about, well, going around meeting other people in the same area, right? You can't really do that whole chiropractor thing long distance. You really want to be focused, right? Same with acupuncture, all that kind of stuff. So the local community is really where you're doing business. So going out and meeting the other people that are in your neighborhood, right? Partner up with those other businesses. Oh, you've got a space. I'd love to teach the class, right? Collaborations, learning how to work together is so important.
Yeah. Like it's kind of huge. I haven't ran any numbers on it, but like for me, I like running, and I do 5Ks, and it's interesting to me because Austin has a huge running community. They have like races, it seems like every month, and California, there's races in San Francisco, San Diego, LA, San Jose, yada yada yada. And one thing I'm toying with is kind of like the collaboration that happens with like a 5K, because you can get a lot of marketing, you get a lot of businesses participating, some sponsoring, some selling their goods of like, hey, coffee, beer, or shoes, or
Right, the local businesses to bring in and do booths, right? There's opportunities for collaboration there. Absolutely. Events, right? Like you mentioned, events are a great way to bring a community together, small town or big town, right? Bring those locals together.
I'm kind of curious, what events have you tried or have you had success with in marketing, like going from small town to national, if you've done national stuff, Christine?
Right. Well, so it's really what makes sense for that business, right? For example, we've got a company we've been working with, Adjusting Online, great people over there. And so it's online courses, right? The ones they teach in person are in Texas. However, right, they're looking for that broader audience, but they can't go and handshake everybody through the whole state of Texas, right? And with Texas training, right, they can apply it in other states. Not all of them, of course. But most of them will take Texas licensing. But there's opportunities there. If you want to get local, right? We're talking about goodness, right? Having in-person events or going and doing something where you're going to talk to an organization, right? Anytime you can get in front of an audience and go talk, right? They've provided the audience, right? You just come and bring the information. So it's getting in front of the right audiences. And we talked about how doing some of the career fairs, right? Career fairs is a great place to get in front of people. So if you have a something that's training related, you're looking at training, changing careers, schools, right? Career fairs you can't go wrong with. So there's local kind of stuff in addition to the online events, the online marketing, the pushing it out, right? So there's a way to balance both, and you want elements of both in your business.
Yeah, I've been impressed with what y'all have been doing with Adjusting Online, like meeting players in the Houston area and just getting them to sign up. It kind of blows my mind what you and Tim are doing. I'm like, oh, this is neat. Like y'all really know the market very, very well, like, and kind of customer acquisition costs. You're not spending $2,000 trying to get
per click, right? Well, the idea, right? What that really ties into a lot of is affiliate marketing, and that's become more and more popular over the years. And so when you have an opportunity and you let your great raving fans share that opportunity and make a little something or get something special out of that, right? Affiliate marketing. It's a great way to go. So yeah, we've put some programs together like that with affiliate marketing. And whether you're in a small town or a big town, right? Affiliate marketing is not a bad way at all. And that kind of gives you that word of mouth and relationship based start to things. So yeah, it's a great area to explore.
Yeah. I never really thought of affiliate marketing being associated with word of mouth, but it makes sense. And,
Yeah.
you're not spending any money on marketing. You're just hoping that somebody says something about your product or service and they sign up, which is
Yeah, they share with someone else who shares with someone else. And it's amazing when it's a good product. Affiliate marketing can be really useful. If you're not seeing a lot of success there, probably need to maybe train them a little bit more so they know, make more things available, more information available. But affiliate marketing can be a great addition to any business, small or large. So if that's something you want to talk about, we've put those together too. So feel free to reach out. We love these kind of conversations. We love building relationships. When you talk about giver marketing, that's really what it's about. It's about building those relationships and building that business from, just the brand to the visibility to the promotion side to the nurturing side. Because just because somebody meets you doesn't mean they want to buy something from you, right? No, you don't want to come across with sales breath, right? Yeah. First, we're talking about buy my stuff, right? And that's where that relationship building really comes into play, whether you're doing it more digitally or whether you're doing it in person, which is nice for the local events also. Yeah. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show today and inspiring us to have a conversation about big town versus small town marketing. Because like I said, it's something dear to my heart. And it's just kind of fun because, we think about big town America as being the thing. And sure, there's a lot of people in a lot of big towns, but there's still a lot of people in rural areas. So if you have a business and you're in a rural area, we see you, okay? And you're more welcome to reach out and have a conversation with us. Thanks you again.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Christine. And thank you, Seth, for commenting. And good to see you all. And till next time.
Absolutely. So just a reminder, we do have on Wednesdays, we've got it's networking for marketers. So if you're in the marketing space, if you're in the PR space, the media space, anything like that, don't be a lonelypreneur. Come hang out with us. Like I said, we like to build relationships. So go to givermarketing.com/networking, register once. And I host this meeting on Wednesdays. It's at, I say 10 Central because I'm in Texas, but okay, 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern, but come hang out with us and have some fun with us. You want to talk about small town marketing? We love that topic. Bring it. We'll have a good time together. Rob, maybe you can hop in and join us too if you're available. And if not, that's all right. We'll grab you another time. Thanks, y'all. Welcome. And come join us. We'll see you next Tuesday for Giver Marketing and our Tuesday marketing broadcast. Thanks, y'all.